Welcome everyone to Amplifying Her Voice. We're now speaking on my favorite panel, Women Investing in Space for Humanity. I've been waiting for this all week, and I know some of you have as well, because we have our gorgeous, beautiful, brilliant women who are going to talk to us about what they've been doing in the space industry. Okay, just Heather, if you can hear me, click the blue button where it says share audio and video. Yes, wonderful. Click the blue button, and then I will pull you up. So that's fantastic. This is great. So yeah, we're all set to go, and we're going to hear about different ways that these women have entered not only the industry but also the investment arena when it comes to what's happening in the space industry. So Heather's with us now. We've got everyone. Hi, good morning. You made it. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Awesome. Okay, so why don't we get started? I want to speak. I want to get this conversation going. Let everyone introduce themselves a little bit about how they've entered the industry and what their favorite investment sector is at the moment, because there's a broad area in the space industry. It's not just rockets, as we know. It's a lot of different avenues, and we want to explore as much as we can. So Shelley, could you please get us started?
Well, thank you so much, Anu. I'm honored to be joining you and all this fantastic panelists we have today. And thank you for putting this wonderful event together, celebrating mothers around the world. I'm Shelley Brunswick, the Chief Operating Officer at and the Space Foundation has launched our Center for Innovation and Education, which is all about creating a platform for lifelong learning for to create workforce development and economic opportunity so all individuals can find their way into the space. One of the things we're most excited about is our Space Commerce Entrepreneurship program, which is into the space ecosystem, whether they are an entrepreneur already and they look at diversifying and creating a new market line into the space ecosystem, or they've always wanted to be an entrepreneur but didn't really know how to do it. So we work with everyone from I don't have an idea and I just think I want to be an entrepreneur to I am an entrepreneur, and is this a good viable option for me to pursue? The thing that we share anew is that we look at highlighting that although launch vehicles and on-orbit assets are wonderful activities, and we see those a lot in the news, a lot of the great areas that I'm hearing a lot about are quantum technology, artificial intelligence, robotics, data analytics, healthcare, advanced manufacturing. Those are all really critical areas as we look at the space ecosystem. And for many of the world, what they're really looking at is how can space help them with agriculture? You know, there's a lot of great opportunity with Earth observation to help us with resource management, animal tracking, pest management, and growing food. And in many countries of the world, agriculture and food needs and resource management are critical day-to-day needs, and highlighting how space technology can help solve that challenge brings home to every citizen on the planet how important space is to all of us. So I'd like to highlight that although there are wonderful areas in all of space technology, and I know Heather is going to tell us about some of the fantastic things she invests in, I'm just very passionate about the areas that space invests in, such as agriculture and water management, that help all of us here on planet Earth. So again, thank you for inviting me, and I'm honored to be joining you.
Thank you, Shelley. This has been such a pleasure reaching out to all of you, getting us all connected, and I can't wait to share this entire panel with the world and all of the young women and girls that are listening once we add you to our digital library. So Kyla has just added herself, and we are now waiting for your video. Kyla, I don't see you. If you need to leave and come back, I'll let you back in, but the video is not showing at the moment, just letting you know. I'm going to shift the screen to Pinar. If you could tell us a little bit about how you got involved and what you're working on currently. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Hello, I'm Pinar from Atlas Office. I'm the CEO of Atlas Office and co-founder of Garage Atlas. We are serial entrepreneurs in extended realities. what we basically focus in is developing new visual digital experiences for everybody. Our very, very interest area is space. Each of us, apart from the business side, are addicted to space technologies. And what we focus in is gathering people in a digital 3D environment and allow them to experience whatever interaction we offer to them. So currently, we're mostly focused in gathering people for business and working purposes. We're targeting the future of work, creating digital spaces where people can gather, either work or socialize, which is a very missing point in our lives these days. And this can be applicable to any surface where it is hard to reach out to one another physically. That can be a space location too. We're talking about relocating to Mars these days, and who knows which other planet will come the second. So basically, we are helping people to experience what it feels like to be on Mars surface in a virtual reality experience and make them gather in a digital platform. So yeah, this is what we basically do. I'm handing back the microphone.
Thank you, Pinar. So we are going to dive in a little bit deeper about how Pinar has been growing her company organically, investing off her balance sheet, and new spin-offs that she's planning now, and how we can participate. So we'll get to that in just a few. Kelly, why don't you go next and tell us a little bit about your foray into the space industry and the ventures that you've been involved in recently. Thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you again for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. My name is Kelly Kiedis-Ogborn, and I'm a commercialization strategist. So what I do is I help organizations and companies transition from development ecosystems to market capitalization. And I also work extensively in the emerging space economy, distilling, technology trends, driving the industry forward and shaping its investment potential and growth. I actually became really involved in the space industry through Shelley, who's my mentor extraordinaire, and have done a lot of work with her in the area. So I'm very grateful for all the opportunities she's afforded to me. In my tangible day job, so I'm president and chief operating officer of Advanced Rockets Corporation, which is an aerospace company, startup out of Southern California. And we make air-breathing hypersonic rockets for routine space launch and defense applications. And then I'm also president and chief executive officer of HS Draconis, which is my longstanding consulting company focused on commercialization. So I'm approaching the discussion today not as a direct investor, but as helps create strategies and helps companies position for growth within the ecosystem, but also become attractive for investment opportunities. So it's a fun place to sit because I both live it and advise on it. In terms of picking a vertical of investment, of course, I'm going to say air-breathing hypersonic rockets. I wouldn't be good at my job if I didn't. But what I find extremely exciting about this moment in space in particular is how fast it's growing and how broad the ecosystem is becoming. And really, to be able to benefit from this vibrant industry, it requires really reimagining the space economy as it is. In the year 2021, in which we are, the moon and Mars are really no longer a wish, they're a fact. And we still have a long way to go to build out this vision for the future space economy exploration. But where we are rooted now is really building the future, and many industries don't realize it. And I know Shelley mentioned, agriculture, that's a huge area. What I find to be the most interesting are these industries that aren't necessarily technical, that are going to become increasingly more relevant, like advancements in textiles and other areas. Whereas space tourism becomes a reality, you need space suits that are going to meet a whole bunch of people's bodies and physical specs within it. And so where I really look at it in terms of investment is that space is an ecosystem and not a sector. It's extremely multidisciplinary, and it really requires a lot of skill sets to achieve our new collective wish. And so by nature, it has to be collaborative and competitive. And so for investors and companies that want to get involved, I really see the playing field being wide open, because we really are defining what the future looks like now and then evolving that over time. It's sort of like one of those choose your own adventure books. You remember those? But I think that it caters to a sliding scale of appetite and risk investment. So being able to evaluate shorter and longer term ROIs, and also balancing space enthusiasm with pragmatism. But it also gives companies the ability to unlock their potential and growth as the ecosystem matures and when their skill sets are going to become relevant. So I'm very excited to be part of this group. I look forward to this discussion. I find that every day there's a new angle to explore and there's new advancements changing the landscape. And I really believe that space is a place for everyone. So I look forward to our discussion today.
Fantastic. Great introduction. Thank you for that. Heather, I'm going to turn it over to you. You've got such a versatile background, and if you can tell us what led you this way and why you're here still. Thank you.
Sure. Versatile or schizophrenic. I'm not sure which it is. Thank you for having me. As Shelley knows, I go after bright, shiny objects sometimes, and it takes me down interesting rabbit holes. But and I also want to thank Shelley for reaching out and for being an incredible mentor in this space and for all of us. So thank you, Shelley. Thank you for having us here. My name is Heather Richmond. I'm based here in Palo Alto, California. And I apologize, I was a few minutes late. I have 2 daughters of my own, and I was making her lunch before I took them to this. So you can be a working mom. It totally works. You'll be a minute late once in a while, but you can do it. I work, day job. I also apologize for the number of acronyms that I'm going to use, and I'll do my best to decipher those. So just start yelling at me if I'm using too many. But day job, I work with a company called BMNT, first acronym of the day. It stands for Begin Morning Nautical Twilight. I work with a couple of retired Special Forces colonels, a couple generals. They came out of Washington, D.C. a number of years ago, about 7 years ago, and teamed up. I've been here in Silicon Valley for about 16 years, and I was in Washington, D.C. before that, working on the Hill, doing appropriations, budget, and tax for Senator Schumer, who's now the majority leader. That was right around 9/11. So I was doing a lot of the rebuilding of Lower Manhattan, which is where where my mission focus comes from. So a lot of work around the defense industry because of that experience. Moved back out here to California and started really building out an investor network and trying to understand what motivates investors, why they do what they do. I'm painfully not motivated by money to a fault, but I am very much motivated by national security and by making sure that our country stays safe. And so day job, we have very, very trusted relationships. All of our, I hate the word customers or clients, but it's a necessary term. Our internal DoD, Department of Defense, and IC, intelligence community clients. So we work with everyone from National Geospatial Intelligence Agency to NASA. I was actually just spent the last 14 hours over the last 2 days working with Space Force. I'm looking at their strategy as they set up their innovation in space works. Work a lot with a lot of the intelligence agencies. I'm sure you're familiar with a few of them. But where this puts me is actually this very interesting intersection of intelligence around what are Space Forces, what NASA, what NGA, all these affiliates, what they're really looking for in industry. There's been a major shift. I mean, space used to be all government, right? It used to be all government funded, all government run. And there's been this dramatic shift into commercial space, which is really exciting. And sitting here in the Valley and other places where innovation is just in your face all the time, and watching these, amazingly talented engineers create, really great stuff, but doing it in the commercial sector, which I actually think leverages taxpayer dollars a whole lot better than when it was all done inside. That being said, there's an inherent disconnect between government and industry, and how those two work together. And so I spend a lot of my time on that front. I guess I'll call it my side hustle, but my other jobs, started something called the Defense Investor Network, because we were seeing a lot of these needs, a lot of these early stage companies that were having trouble, especially in energy, in space, these very capital intensive industries that were really challenged in raising capital. And so finding those investors that really understand national security, they look through the national security lens when they're investing, and they're willing to play the long game a little bit. So looking for those investors that are a little bit more patient, I think has been really positive. Also bringing them together. As much as investors like to be risky, they like to be risky in large groups. So if we can get some of those like-minded people together separately, those investors that haven't been focused so much on national security focused entities and capabilities, educating them on all the things that you guys are all working on and making sure that they understand the importance of it. So it's not, I love fashion apps, don't get me wrong, but we're focused, more on supply chain and hardware and all the really exciting, easy stuff that comes down the pipeline. I guess the last thing, I'm the founder of something called the Family Office Command, FOCOM. I'll show you something here. My daughters made me this during COVID. So it's FOCOM, which is actually a network of high net worth individuals and family offices that do have patient capital. They've made their wealth here in the United States, and there's been a trend over the last number of years of something we call foreign direct investment or nefarious capital. And I'm certain we call them lovingly countries of special concern that will pour money into companies that are national security critical to us. And so helping to remove some of that capital, helping to find clean allied capital to put into some of those companies, many of which are represented here, is something that we're very much focused on. So I guess the last thing I'll highlight is my favorite area of investment. Again, I go after the really sexy stuff, is supply chain. I'm really into supply chain right now. I think it's critically important looking at manufacturing. Somebody mentioned textiles, and it was Kelly, looking at new composites, new materials, new ways to manufacture and bring that manufacturing capability back to safe places. That's it.
Beautiful. How old are your daughters?
They're 9 and 12.
9 and 12. And you're in Defense Investor Network. We touched upon this yesterday on our call. This is global. It's not just the United States. You're open to foreign investors as well.
Absolutely. We've got right now we're leveraging about 150 investors. That's been growing, but I would say right now we've got 5 eyes. So we've got a small group in the UK. The Australia group has gotten pretty big and a little cagey on me, which is good. And then we've got a couple in Canada, one in New Zealand, but looking to expand that. Absolutely.
What are the minimum ticket sizes usually with these family offices when they decide to invest? Are they in the $100,000 range, millions range, multi-millions range?
So as you know, in space there, it's a whole ecosystem, and so there are companies at the very early stages. It's all over the gamut. I hate to say be broad like that, but basically what we do is we will source an opportunity, which is in response to something that we've gotten intelligence from inside the DoD, or I see that this is a critical capability, and then we will usually put the first little chunk of money in. So we're working on a deal right now that's about a $12 million deal, so we'll put the first $3 million in, and then actually open it up to the network. And so really trying to create basically a mechanism for folks to invest as they're most comfortable. A lot of folks would prefer to direct invest, and we're fine with that. So it's much more about leveraging. Back to my not being good at making money for myself. I really don't care. Let's just get this done.
No, it's super. Are you familiar with platforms like GUST, GUST? Yeah. Is it similar to GUST for space?
So right now, we are working on building out more of a platform to scale and automate a little bit. Right now, it is very manual and very personal. It's very much personal relationships at this point, mostly just because of the sensitivity of the information that we're receiving from the DoD. But like I said, working on classification issues, trying to scale this as quick as we can, but still making it a secure and a comfortable experience for investors.
Fantastic. Now we're going to get into the fun stuff. We're still waiting for Dr. Kyla. She's having trouble getting in. She's on her way. She's been on it for like 45 minutes. So we're just going to be patient, and she'll get in when she gets in. But we're going to keep going, having a beautiful conversation so far with all these amazing women. Radhika, dear friend of mine from blockchain, like Shelly, you didn't know this, but we've been connecting like throughout the years. In this other space of mine, cryptocurrency, blockchain, she's mostly very, very far ahead of most people in this space. And I'm going to let her share a little bit about how she got into this arena and her new fund that she might want to talk about as well. So Radhika, please.
Thanks. Really amazing to hear all of the stories and what you're involved in. So I'm Radhika Iyengar. I'm founding partner at Start Chain Ventures. We're a venture studio actually here in Silicon Valley, so not too far from you, Heather. And we're focused on advanced technologies, specifically blockchain, AI, IoT, and where the convergence of these technologies occurs in various sectors. And I'd say frontier tech is a good term for kind of all of the many interests that I have. And I think, like all of you have pointed out, it's not just about space in general, which I think is an important next frontier or current frontier even. As Kelly pointed out, the mission to Mars is not something off in the distance. It is happening, it is occurring, and we're seeing live progress for that, which is exciting. But it's also about the many other applications. And what I'm most excited by is things like data. The story around data is something that is pretty important, I think. And, people might not think about what the story arc of data looks like, but how you onboard it, how you secure it, how you keep it private, how you keep it compliant in certain industries, and then apply insights via AI or what have you to derive the kinds of trending analysis, if you will. All of that is important. The entire story arc of data is really something that I'm very focused on. And it is not just a blockchain story. So to be clear, I wrote my book. I don't know if you can see it, but Enterprise Blockchain has arrived. That came out in 2019. Second edition coming out this year, later. I speak prolifically. I think I've spoken at probably every major venue possible, TEDx, all the major universities, Stanford, MIT, Harvard, etc. Top companies as well here in the Bay Area. So, but what I really talk about is the future of advanced technologies and the future of decentralization as well. When you think about all of the issues around data and the pitfalls that we are encountering, we have really reached or breached, as some of us like to say, the outer limits of what current Web 2.0 technologies offer. And so when I think about what the future brings, and that includes everything relating to Earth, space, etc., it's really talking about building robust infrastructures around data that can support the degree of security and the degree of privacy that we all need. So I'm very focused on three things, which is compliance, security, privacy, and what concerns all of us when we interact with data is the story of identity. Everything is going digital, and our digital identities are things that I think need to be talked about a lot more. I think we've gotten way too complacent, in terms of what is out there. And so when I think about, well, what does space travel really mean? What does it mean to send up satellites in low Earth orbit? What does it mean to have a broadband system across the entire globe? Number one, I think it's a positive because we might be bringing digital capabilities to areas that have been left out. So that's closing the digital divide. And I think that's a very, very big topic in terms of bringing equity and inclusion across the entire globe. But more importantly, what does it mean when all of those people come online and are left vulnerable, right? And so we don't want to keep repeating similar mistakes in terms of where we have come from. We want to look at really robust infrastructures and really horizontals across the playing field, like blockchain, to secure, to keep private, to bring about what we call selective disclosure, so we can share what we want to share, keep private what we want to keep private. And yesterday we were on the Crypto Queens panel, and one of the interesting topics that came up around privacy and what does that mean? For me, privacy means freedom. It means supporting a democratic value. What we don't want is either government or private sector infringing on our privacies. So these are things that are incredibly important. And as we think about what does it mean to bring the world into a truly digital age, that aspect around data cannot be underscored enough. So what I'm looking forward to is the application of these technologies all in combination in areas like supply chain, for example. Heather, you're really motivated by something as wonderful as supply chain. Well, when you think about supply chain, current systems allow you to see the visibility only who is in front of you or who's behind you in the supply chain. You don't have transparency and auditability and compliance across the entire chain. So if you're really thinking about all-encompassing systems that can afford, that can provide this type of transparency and auditability and allow greater collaboration and sharing of data to benefit everybody. we're really talking about blockchain-based systems. And so supply chain is really being transformed by blockchain, for example, in areas such as food security, preventing future contamination of food, in prescription drug development and distribution, in ethical supply chain, so that we don't often think about what does conscious consumerism mean. If you buy organic, is it truly organic? Who says? Does it have a sticker on it? Does that mean that it's organic just because somebody put a sticker on it? What does that sticker truly represent? Can you trace it? Can you authenticate it? Can you validate it? So when we're talking about verifiability of data, verifiability of labels we attach to things, do we know where our chocolate comes from? Is it from an area of the world that doesn't follow labor laws, that practices child labor, for example? I mean, so all of these things to me are truly transformative. And so when we're looking at the next generation, whether we're talking on Earth or anything else or anywhere else, we really have to be talking about the data story. And that's really where I'm at. So as a part of our venture studio, we're spinning up companies in fintech that are largely focused on financial inclusion, for example, and also healthcare. So there's a lot of things that I think need to be done on Earth. I'm very excited about the future of what space actually means. And I'm not talking about space tourism necessarily, but I'm talking about, bringing about the next generation of exploration. I'm very excited that we are looking at viable avenues. Who knows what's going to happen here on Earth? I mean, at the rate that we're going with climate change and all of that, we just don't know what window of time we have. I'd love to say that we can preserve this great blue marble that we live on, but who knows, right? And so we're really deeply indebted to people like Elon Musk, who are really stretching and reimagining what our future looks like and giving us avenues beyond what we enjoy here on Earth. And hopefully we can preserve what we have here. But I think it's important for us to look at other avenues and other possibilities.
Amazing. So this is our amazing panel of women. I'm going to share a little bit about my background. Prior to working on women investing, women digital, and Sheconomy, I was working with the U.S. Department of Commerce, the State Department, on raising capital from the Nordics and the Middle East, from family offices, sovereign funds, pension funds, institutional investors to support U.S. private equity and venture funds. When I left my role working in this space of private placements, I had $175 billion worth of private equity funds under my belt, which I was fundraising for, and really stepped aside because of women like yourselves. Wanted to see more investments going towards women-led ventures, women-led funds, and started Women Investing, Women Digital. And it's a media platform. We've been growing over the past 6 years organically. Here comes Kyla. Wonderful. You're with us. Awesome. Thank you. Can you hear us, Kyla? Can you hear us? Please say yes. Can you hear us? Oh, you're so close. Okay. Refresh, please. Refresh if you can hear me. We're getting closer. We're getting closer. Refresh, please. You hear me? Okay, we're going to keep continuing, and then I'm going to try to address her in just a minute. So Women Investing, Women Digital, we've held summits and conferences all over the world. The last one that we did in Sweden had 1,400 women talking about investing on the NASDAQ Nordic Stock Exchange floor. And at that moment in time, we said, let's go digital, not knowing, where we would be 6 years later. But we've been building our global audience, have about 970,000 followers on Facebook now. It's just a feed. Any content conversation you all would like to share about the great work that you're doing, we're here for you. And then we started a podcast, Women Investing, Women and Girls, to highlight outstanding women like yourselves. The podcast network has now evolved into the State of Women Podcast Network, 300 podcasts, English, Spanish, Chinese. And what we've done is we have moved in the direction of rewarding people for listening. And ultimately, we'll be offering tokens for participating and liking, sharing content, which can then be used to track how women invest, donate, spend, and save. And I got interested in the space world because obviously, we want to get this technology out to women and girls for purposes of education and so on and so forth. But we need satellites in order to do so. And we've just signed a contract with the United Nations as of this Saturday to take our new apps into refugee camps in Bangladesh, which is going to be a pilot. And we're really looking to bridge, AI, ML, blockchain, and now looking at the space sector. And all of you ladies are phenomenal in the way that you've gone into this. I'm actually trying to take it from space blockchain to the girls that need it, that need the education and also need us to help convey their messages for greater peace and security on the planet. So that's one of the reasons I got involved in this space. But I'm very interested in the investment side, of course, because it takes money to make money and it takes money to make impact. And that's why we're all here ultimately is for that one common goal. We do have Dr. Kyla Tenen with us. I want to see, can you hear us, Kyla? Yes? No? You can't hear us. Okay, so can you leave and come back again? Let's keep trying until you can hear us because we're getting somewhere. We can see you now. I think one more go. You do exactly what you did and come back, make your audio working. So we're going to dive in now that we've heard basically what everyone is working on, their areas of expertise. There's a huge range. It's everything from being an entrepreneur to an advisor to an investor to a woman that sets it all up and makes it happen, which is what we all need at this moment in time to really get to the end goal. So I'm going to start with Pinar. Tell us a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur in this space industry, and now what's been like in terms of finding co-investors and so on and so forth, and your hairy audacious goal and where you'd like to see yourself in a couple of years from now, if not sooner.
Yeah, thank you. So, actually, my journey started when I started wondering about how we perceive the world. I mean, what is to be a human, how we understand, how we make decisions, how we live. So what are our needs? Then at that point, I have a, background of design and technology. I'm an urban planner. I lived in geographic information systems, developed simulations in 3D and 2Ds, made a lot of analysis, developed applications, run tech companies. Then at the point that I was researching about and getting some education training about neuroscience and what it means to be a human, then I came across with extended realities. My team currently is a woman-led team, as well as being woman majority team members, having majority of women team members. So what we basically do is creating experiences. So basically, we're human beings, actually a form of biological, creatures. We have certain needs to keep on living, and we have certain needs apart from just surviving, but like social needs and etc. We're not only eating, drinking, sleeping, and then able to live. We have got other needs. So our personal, very personal interest of space has come across as an application to ourselves too. We developed a Mars simulation where we wanted to make people feel that they are on the Mars surface, as if we just dropped them on the surface, because that's what virtual reality does to you. And wanted to make people understand what their possible needs could be. If they can survive without food or without water, or how will they sustain their energy. We wanted them to feel that a little bit of panic and curiosity about how to survive. And other than that, feel that, the deserted, giant, orange land of loneliness. So what it feels like to survive there as social beings too. So currently our application is helping a lot of people to, feel like they travel to Mars as if nobody has just arrived on the surface. If you would like to, I can also, help you a ride for the Mars even now. So please contact me right after the speech. So we want to extend these borders to everybody. So when whomever you be, wherever you are, you can experience this feeling. You can understand what it means, like, home. Is it a place where you live in? Is it the Mars surface if you're on Mars, or is it the place that you feel you belong to? And how you will communicate with others on the surface or on the other planet, not on the other side of the planet, but on the other planet. So it's the moment that may make you come across with this is a huge moment to change your mindset. So then you're trying to find the ways to gather people to understand them. So what we focus in 5 years' time, in our 5 years goal, is creating a platform where people can freely gather on digital and extend their borders. We don't want them to use any platform just because of COVID, just because they cannot go outside their homes, but also because they can extend their borders. So to go to work, we know that we don't need to anymore go to office spaces, but we can communicate through internet. Just like this, imagine if you have got a laptop, it doesn't matter wherever you're on the Earth's surface. So your office is there, your friends are there, your physical space to share is there. So in 5 years' time, we're targeting to be the major gathering platform for business purposes, for working, for education, for academics, for events, all sorts of these kind of targets and aims. So we are open to getting investment for these platforms, for either Mars experiences or the gathering platform, 3D business platform. So we are hoping to have more than 1 million active users in 3 years' time in the platform. So we're expecting to have our next conversation in our virtual city, where we can also hang out after the speech and say, let's go to the lunch, let's go to the cafe, or let's go to the yard. We have got fireflies. So yeah, this is our target.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. And I wanted to jump in now with Kelly. I'd like to hear more about your rockets project. You mentioned the air breathing rockets. Tell us a little bit about what you're working on and where you're at with that venture at the moment.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, it's a very exciting prospect. So the CEO of our company is originally from Nigeria, and he's been working on figuring out a way to make rockets more cost effective and reusable since he was essentially 9 years old, filed his first patent when he was 16. I actually met him through my consulting company. I did a commercialization study for them. And then at the conclusion of that, they asked me to come on and help run the company and expand it. I have a background. I come from DoD land and Department of Defense. I was DARPA's congressional liaison for about 8 years and then transitioned into doing lab to market strategies. So very much understand how to move technologies into government applications, but also dual use. Where we are now, so we have computationally validated the tech. We're currently in a capital raise. As you know, rockets are very capital intensive. So we've broken it down into particular milestones of development. But what we really aim to do that is different than traditional rockets in the space, because we always get asked what's the difference between us and Elon. It's the design of the rocket and then also the mission set. So what I always like to say is that phenomenal, right? He's pushing the boundaries of where the industry's going, where the ecosystem's going, and what we're able to do. But what we want to be able to enable is the infrastructure for the future space economy to take advantage of. So the air breathing properties of our rockets allow them to be cheaper, more reusable, and have quicker turnaround times just because it's less harsh on the engine components. And so we are creating strategic partnerships with spaceports and LEO to do routine launch cadence to the components that are going to take advantage of their ports. So anything from research, commerce, manufacturing, once again, enabling the things, then scaling with the ecosystem to eventually transport people. I can't say when, because, you know, anything at hypersonic speed, when you put people in it, it's a very dangerous game. So I'm very much trying to balance, you know, space enthusiasm with big business pragmatism, as I said in the beginning, and start small where we can see a return from 3 to 5 years and then scale as the industry scales. So it's a really exciting place to be. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I think a lot about, you know, these frontier technologies, Radhika, as you mentioned, and what's really going to be changing the landscape. And so as a company strategy, I'm also trying to make inroads with those companies that we could eventually provide cheap routine launch for when they're able to actually come online and advance the economy.
Amazing. And you guys have all finished your friends and family round. You're moving on to seed round now, correct?
Yeah, so we finished our friends and family. We're currently in a 5 million seed round, but also actively going after government contracts to be able to offset some of the capital intensive aspects through strategic partnerships.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
I want to shift gears to Radhika at the moment, and you are you've got ventures in the works. Is there any one particular one that you want to dive deeper and share about at the moment, or the fund, whatever you're able to share? It's being recorded.
Well, yeah, actually, you know, what I would want to talk about too is the other thing that I'm involved in, which is the intersection of tech and policy. You know, I think that as we, you know, so I also have several hats, and one of the hats I wear is as a member of the task force. It's the blockchain working group here in California, advising Governor Newsom and the state legislature. And when we think about the impact of any technology, you kind of have to think about, and I know a number of us ladies here are involved in sort of that public-private sort of space and where the twain meet. I think that, you know, where we see things going is that there's going to be an impact with technologies such as blockchain or AI, for example. And what do you do when you bring those two together and you start applying it in various areas? And so what I'm really excited by is shaping policy around what we should do with new technologies. How does it apply to, say, the residents here in California, since that's the area that I'm working on? I think technology is a very positive thing and can enable lots of progress to happen. But I think that what we have to think about is, from a regulatory perspective, what kind of frameworks do we need to build to support the right kind of innovation, to make sure that we stifle things that are fraudulent, you know. And so, you know, with any technology, you're really looking at what the potential vulnerabilities are and how do you resolve those. And then, so really the future that I'm working on is, like I said, it's a decentralized future, but it also is compliant, it's private, and it's secure. So I think for me, you know, all of the endeavors that I'm involved in, and I can't say that it's one particular thing, it's all about having the maximum impact for people here, right? And it's really thinking about not some frivolous app. It's about thinking world-changing, game-changing kind of technologies that are really going to bring us into the next gen. So what's exciting about what's happening in blockchain is that it's evolving. A lot of people are just familiar with the crypto aspect, right? And crypto is great. It's exciting. It's fun. And there's a lot of innovation happening. But what we're seeing, or what I'm seeing, and this is the thesis laid out in my book, which I'm sort of playing out in all of the different projects I'm involved in, is where we take this to the next level. And so there's been redefining what online trust means. That's the internet of trust, as I call it. Then there is the internet of value, and that's a lot of where we see the crypto space coming into action. But then what we're taking it forward is the internet of identity. And so I'm really concerned about digital identity and how that impacts. And what I want to see is a future where we're seeing self-sovereignty and more control and ownership of our own data, no matter where we are. and what walk of life we're engaged in. So those are some of the aspects that I'm working on. And I work, as many of you are, not just on the venture side, but also in an advisory capacity. So I'm advising companies of all sizes and saying, how do you embrace the power of these technologies to transform how you're conducting business? What new models come up? What new forms of business can be thought of and capitalized and monetized? And so these are things that we're thinking about all the time. I think that when it comes to things like frontier technologies, what's really exciting is you get to reimagine and reshape. And what's exciting for me personally is when you start combining these advanced technologies, there's a great power. So Pinar, for example, you're rethinking, reshaping the future of what personal interaction means. And I think that no time have we experienced this need of rethinking things boldly than during the pandemic, right? I mean, we're still under lockdown pretty much. And so I think that as we start thinking about the ways we've been doing things and say there is a better way, there is an easier way perhaps, and that it doesn't always, I mean, we're social creatures, we love that personal contact, but we need to embrace the power of technology to say it's not just about the in-person, it can be remote. And that's a new way of doing things. And so what I'm excited about anything in frontier technology is rethinking and reimagining, because we don't have to accept the structures of a status quo or legacy environment. We can rethink and reimagine and be bold with our visions. If we didn't have the visionaries like an Elon Musk, for example, we wouldn't be here today, trying to do the things that we're trying to do. And there's lots of progress that I think we can think about, even benefiting here on Earth what we're doing, whether it's agriculture. So like Shelley, you're really involved in on that front. There's a lot of problems that I think that are global that we can solve. And so for me, the motivation that I have, whether it's on the venture side or on the advisory capacity that I serve, is really looking at groundbreaking technologies and how we can rethink and reimagine what we're doing today, to solve big challenges that we have. And we don't really have that much time, I think, to solve the challenges that we think we need to solve. We've had many decades in the making to think and talk about things, but the time for discourse and rhetoric is gone. I mean, it's now time for action. So this is where I'm motivated most, is bringing people together, working with entrepreneurs, working with large companies to solve problems. And so it's a stakeholder ecosystem building sort of environment. Healthcare is like one of the things that I'm most passionate about, I would say, in terms of a sector, because it's not just about the pandemic and what we do, but we've really laid bare during the time of the pandemic how we failed. A lot of what we've experienced with COVID could have been avoided if we had taken action in the right way. So global political will, and this is that intersection of tech and policy, that absolutely comes into play. Geopolitics comes into play. How we relate to one another as a human being, a human species. And I think that's no borders, right? So we have a global kind of a challenge situation that we're facing, and yet we haven't done it very well. And even as we're rolling out the vaccines, we're very fortunate to be here in the United States, but there are many parts of the country. I come originally from India. There's such suffering going on right now because there's inequity. And so I think that how can we close all of the divides? How can we ensure that we can bring technology together to solve important problems? These are some of the things that I'm actually deeply involved with.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And big visions, big ideas. And we've got people, see, I told you, Pinar, this lab, we're going to talk about that at the end. But I want to jump in because big ideas, big visions. We've got diversity finally coming into the picture, looking at all of your beautiful faces this morning. We've now got women who are now, putting our voices, but also our money at the table, saying these are the values that we are going after. They're big, they're bold, and they've got our stamp on it at the end of the day. And I wanna pass this on to Heather, because I'm super curious. Do you see more women investors stepping up in innovations that are coming up now, either from the entrepreneurial standpoint or from the investor standpoint? And if so, approximately, like how have you seen the trend over, let's just say the past 5-10 years?
We're getting there. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's still, it's still not very, riddled with women, but we're getting there. It's a great group, All Rise, that my friend Eileen Lee started, who came out of Cowboy Ventures, who's amazing. We're getting there, and I think there's been a lot of talk about empowerment, a lot of encouragement for women to get into funds. I mean, I know there's a rule now about women being on boards. I don't think there's an official rule about women being part of a GP or part of a fund, but I'm getting a lot more phone calls, to be honest. I think it's great, and and recommendations, not necessarily for me, but recommending women. But you know what? It's funny. I'm seeing more of an uptick, frankly, on the entrepreneurial side, which I think is great. The creativity there, and I think the starting the company and kind of the digging into the teeth on that side. I mean, that's where I'm seeing it more, which I love. Because I'm kind of a poser investor. I'll be honest. I've gotten in there to it's more about kind of actually back to Kelly's point, like the government contract piece. It's a way I've gone because out of necessity, frankly, not so much. It's on the government contract side, like I said, spent a few days with Space Force and working with our government clients a lot on how to make that process easier, because that those contracts and that kind of signaling from inside the Department of Defense and the government as a whole really leverages a lot of the private capital. But there's been this kind of the level of discomfort, right, for those inside the military or the government to talk about. They call it, they say we can't pick winners is kind of always their excuse. I'm like, you're not picking winners, you're identifying the most critical capabilities that are necessary for national security. So trying to change that dialogue a little bit and getting government and military to feel more comfortable having relationships and conversations, real life conversations with innovators. And I think women are getting into are becoming a bigger part of that. Back to your original question. Yeah, I mean, there are more. I think just because, I think a lot of women for a long time just kind of didn't want to, how do I say this diplomatically? Usually I just spout off and say all sorts of horrible things. But deal with it, kind of deal with the BS. But we're realizing we have to get in there, and our voice is different. And I think there's a lot of data right now being shown that, that women, that companies with women or investment funds with women, leadership, they're just more successful. They get to market faster. Their revenue is better. They know their customer better. They just understand all the things. And so now that that's part of the dialogue. And I won't say just women. I think diversity, diverse boards and diverse companies. I think that really benefits. And frankly, right, to get to your point, I think as we're looking at government, we always kind of silo ourselves geographically, geopolitically. Space is inherently global, right? And so there are no borders in space, right? And so I think it's been really interesting to see how a lot of the investors I work with, the UK does a lot of really interesting things. And frankly, the way they actually have the European Space Force or European Space Agency and the UK Space Agency that actually put money into private investment funds. That's not a model that the US has used in the past, and I don't think it's one that we'll use in the near future. But it's just interesting to see how different countries are investing. We do a lot of work with, actually, a dear friend of mine was the DASD to Southeast Asia and is doing a bunch of work in India around their Space Force and around their space capabilities, and amazing talent there. We need to be leveraging talent from all over the world, and that's men and women. So I don't know. I look at things. I can't say I don't see gender, I don't see color, but I don't. I see who's where's the talent, and who are these people that I've been kind of laughing as we've all described our 9,000 jobs that we all have, because I think that's what you get with women. It's just this inherent, okay, job needs to get done, stuff needs to get built, let's do it. And there's I don't want to be stereotypical here, but I think the ego levels are just very different. We just dig in, and we're here to fix and to help and to reimagine and to be bold and to I think we truly don't fear failure as much as others do. I fail every day. If that makes anybody feel better. I didn't even get here on time. Just everything. But I think that's just kind of part of how we learn, and then we take that in and we figure it out. We figure stuff out, and I think that's something that I really value women for. But yeah, we still need to do better on getting more women into this space. But the platform you've built, doing things like this, I think is really encouraging. I will say one last data point, and then I'll pass it back. We started to run something called Hacking for Defense. It was a graduate level course we started at Stanford, multidisciplinary, and I'll just say it's been around for about 5 years, and the number of women in that who've applied and then gotten into that class has skyrocketed. And that's kind of the next generation of national security minded entrepreneurs. Obviously, space is a big piece of that, and so that's really encouraging to me.
So I used to lead roundtables for women investors across the Middle East and Scandinavia, Southeast Asia, and these were all like families and women that were in the industry and so on and so forth. And it 20 to 50 people, very successful, and they invest with their values. Number one. And so what I'd like to do, we've done this twice now. We've run Amplifying Her Voice twice now. International Women's Day, we had 1,600 attendees from 100 countries. This is this, and we had 250 speakers. This summit, we had 300 speakers, half, but we didn't include Asia this time. It was just too much for the time zones. But in June, we're going to do this again, and we're going to invite all the 500 speakers back and then include men at the table. And I would love, like, this is an action-oriented group, as you can tell, like everybody that's working behind the scenes. We're all like, how do we get shit done? Because the planet needs us now. We can't wait any longer. And women need to step up their game, and they just don't know how or where. So next summit, my suggestion is, we're going to go into a deep dive and say, these are some women-led companies. Have a look. These are some people that are ready to co-invest with you. Have a look. And so ultimately make this a more friendly environment so that we can actually start to see how do we operate as one as opposed to silos here and there, and really start to move this forward. So I would like to create an investment roundtable for the next summit and get you guys, whoever wants to be on board will be invited. And you're all on a WhatsApp thread with me now. And Kyla is watching. She's not there on the screen, but she's listening and she's with us. And I'm going to talk to her. I promised her a call today at 6 p.m. before we had this call today, saying, let's get to work. So before even we had this conversation, Kyla and I had already scheduled a meeting. So we're going to get to work. And I'm so impressed with all of the work that you guys are doing. Shelley, I'm going to let you jump in, love, and give me some of your thoughts on, some programs and things like that, what government is already doing for the women entrepreneurs that will be listening to this, and how they can get funding, and also avenues. If they want to start investing, where would you tell them to start?
That's a super idea. The first thing, and I know Dr. K is not joining us at the moment, but she's listening. And that is one of the things that Kyla and I are both part of, is the World Business Angels Investment Forum.
Yeah.
Global Women's Leadership Committee, and Radhika as well. And we're on the Global Women's Leadership Committee, and that's really about raising that awareness about women entrepreneurs. And WBF also has a fund that wants to make sure 50% goes towards women. Mm-hmm. So for Heathers and the others out there that look at investing, it's important to always look at how are we making sure that there's equity in that, so that women and other minorities and diverse groups are receiving the same opportunity to come to the table for investment. We know that there's a bigger challenge for that, so we have to break down what that barrier might be. The other thing I highlight a lot is finding that right mentor. Many times, women may not have the same network and mentorship that male entrepreneurs receive. And so we really have to create that ecosystem for female entrepreneurs and diversity entrepreneurs to find mentors. And there are several great mentoring programs. UN Space for Women has one, Women Tech Network has one. Again, WBIF, Global Women's Leaders Committee, is also going to be establishing a mentor one to highlight, so we can help women find that advice and insight, and then also make those connections. Because many times, the way, not only as entrepreneurs, but even in the space ecosystem or without, it's really those networking and connecting. And that's one of the things that's so wonderful about working at the Space Foundation, is because we do connect the global space ecosystem, whether it's military, commercial, civil, or international. We look at that whole workforce pipeline, and we look at how do we help regions of the world enter into that global space ecosystem, but also how are you creating the workforce for the future? Because as we've all talked about, there are many challenges, and when not all the voices are at the table, we are not going to get the best solutions. So we have to invite everyone to the table, but we also have to create the opportunity for everyone to be part of that global space ecosystem. And that includes lifelong learning platforms and opportunities, so that everyone understands how technology is changing, how they can position themselves, and then how can they thrive in it. And I commented in the chat that many times this is the role of government. It is the role of government to bring the thought leaders to or the role of nonprofits, government, industry to come to the table and say, here is a way to create a successful ecosystem for your region or your country, and how you can contribute in the global space ecosystem. We've had at the Space Foundation many countries reach out and say, oh, will you tell us how to build a launch facility in our country? And although that's a wonderful idea and it might be valid, there may be other areas, like Radhika said, that maybe there's other opportunities in data analytics or other advanced manufacturing, or maybe you want to have a medical space hub innovation opportunity. So it really requires government coming to the table. What are they trying to do to create the right ecosystem to support innovation and entrepreneurship? Bringing in industry and nonprofits to look at the workforce. How can they create the workforce they need for that future? And then creating that investment fund. And again, as Heather said, the US may not follow that model, but many other countries do. And the US government does have investment funding. I mean, it's in SBIR and STTR grants. So there is funding from the US government. It's just a little different form and function. One of the examples I'll just highlight is the UAE and their space agency. They have set a lofty goal of having a Mars colony in, about less than 100 years now. They've started their Arab Space Pioneers program to create a workforce to fill those jobs of the future. They're partnering on innovation with universities and other organizations to create that innovative technology. But that will benefit them going to Mars, but also that technology is going to benefit them here on Earth. And they're just one of many. But again, that is a well thought out, methodical process that other countries can look at that model. Other countries, regions, states, communities can look at that model.
Fantastic. So my question to you was, can that be modeled here in the US? That the UAE model, would you say, would that work? I mean, just the way they've set it up. Your thoughts?
So I'll give my 2 cents, and then I'm going to let Heather and Kelly, who are also worked on Capitol Hill, give their 2 cents, because I did also work on Capitol Hill as an Air Force budget and appropriations liaison. So we do have a model similar to that. I mean, we do have the NASA Artemis Accords, and we do want to go back to the moon and onto Mars, and we want to use the moon as the testing ground. That is the nearest celestial body to test all these activities, the 3D printing, can we make oxygen, can we grow food, and all the other things we're going to need to do. So the US does have a model similar but different, because we are different types of governments, but we do have a thought process, a leadership strategy, an investment strategy. The Artemis, ecosystem is open, and so they show their milestones, they show the technology they're looking for. So there's an opportunity, as Heather leads a defense investor area, but there's opportunity for tech insertion into the government solution, as well as tech transfer from government back to industry. And again, there is that seed funding. NASA has thousands of patents at their technology transfer office that are waiting to be commercialized. And those range from everywhere from agriculture to energy storage solutions to transportation to healthcare. And ESA, the European Space Agency, has the same technology transfer office. So the U.S. does have a great opportunity. It's a little different system than the UAE system, but it does have a thought process and a roadmap for all citizens, not just in the U.S., but elsewhere to follow, because they are signing the Artemis Accords. They are bringing in partners to collaborate on this future endeavor. It is going to take all of us as a humanity to make the decision to be an interplanetary species.
Great. So this is super insightful. And I will say for the next one, if we can do a deep dive into Artemis, what is this and how does it work? And for those of you that are watching that don't know, it's the mission to get the first woman on the moon. And I believe every single one of us on here is super passionate about that. I'm just speaking for everyone right now, but whatever we can do to start engaging not just other like-minded investors and entrepreneurs like ourselves, but there's a lot of young women and girls that can do a lot of good with social media. And you've got young daughters, Heather, and I've got a 10-year-old, and this is like where you really get momentum is the next generation saying we got to have this. And they'll make it happen for us. And so I really believe in that. So if we could do some kind of a focus on Artemis, that would be super. And any one of you that can help me with that, let's get it done for the next one. I want to pass this on to Heather. You had a comment, and then we'll go to Kelly, and then we'll move it back to Pinar. Go for it. We've got 20 minutes.
No, I just wanted to echo, what Shelley was talking about, and I actually was flipping through my notes. I had a recent meeting with NASA, about all of their different programs and processes that they've been trying to implement, literally to pull technology out or to commercialize it. So I guess knee deep, face in it. I just, what are these processes that need to be changed? And this is such a boring topic. I so apologize. But just, how do we actually get this tech out? How do we find those entrepreneurs that are going to take it and commercialize it? How do we find that capital? Just all of these different pieces. And I think that I see all those pieces represented here, from the entrepreneurial side to the policy side to the logistics to the process, and just, and then we're talking about diversity. We're talking about geopolitics. There's all of these different things. I don't even think about getting to Mars yet, just because I'm like, how do we get government contracting, like just this minutia and unlocking all of these things? But I think, again, inherently global, yet this is also inherently dual use, right? This is government, it's everything. And so more and more the technologies, blockchain, security, it's anyone who's out there who doesn't know what dual use means, it basically just means that there's a government or, a military use case as well as a commercial use case. And I think for a long time there was some of that. But now it's everything. It's everywhere. Pinar, what you're building, absolutely. There are so many, government military applications for that. And so I think what we're seeing is just this unlocking of, the fact that most of us on this panel have had government experience, I think says something. And so I think making those lines so much easier, making these entities, the commercial and the government entities, so much easier to work between, I think is a real passion and a real focus of mine, because these two worlds need to be working lockstep.
100%. My first job was working on Capitol Hill in the Senate Russell building, full disclosure. So in Georgetown, I get you. I understand. It's painful. Kelly?
One last comment. It is painful, but just on this SpaceWorks thing I was doing the last 2 days, they kept kind of commenting on, it's painful, but this is the way it's always been done. I'm like, we can't do things the way they've always been done anymore. Yes. Like, we need to really, overhaul. So
you tell them, girl. You tell them.
I 1,000% agree with that. And not to beat a dead horse, but one of the things that I have always found profound is that we're in no shortage we don't have an innovation crisis in the United States, right? We really do have the seed corn spread across the country. It's more processes, to Heather's point, but it's also competing priorities. Because I think that part of the challenge the United States has is that we are trying to keep pace with all of the various elements that all the other countries are trying to compete against the US for. And so it's really a divergence of focus and investment and focus on technology. And that's why I think that the shift of, the government really setting pace for space strategic priorities and the private sector investing in it creates an interesting dichotomy, because it somewhat streamlines and sort of shakes up geopolitical alliances for the greater good, because space does need to be collaborative and competitive, but it's going to advance the industry in a way that the government will then be able to take advantage of, but it'll further it along because there's just not enough money from the government stance to move everything at the same time.
Excellent. I'm gonna, we got 20 minutes to go.
Can I just jump in?
Yeah, jump in.
30 seconds. I think that, what we've been talking about, I think there's a misconception government can't be effective in areas in terms of innovation and what have you. And I think all of us here at the table can refute that, because we know the power of government in a good sense, with the right frameworks, to be able to move things in a way that in these new frontier areas, right? Where, I was just commenting on the chat that DARPA was instrumental in the creation of the internet. We need that kind of bold vision and innovative funding. Government has the power to do that. So I think that there are some really great benefits. And so, if you look at what's happening in UAE or other areas, for example, it's where government has stepped in and said, we need a broad reaching infrastructure that's going to benefit all of our citizens. So I think that there's a great power of good government, I think, and good governance, and good policy that I think can be supportive of groundbreaking innovation, next gen innovation, calling to action, bold vision, right? I mean, that whole speech by President John F. Kennedy to say, we choose to do these things not because they're easy, but because we have to, right? So this is that call to action. Is we're at a time, I think globally, there's an intersection here that is so important. This juncture is about global political will to do the difficult things, to make the hard choices, to look beyond borders. And it's not just about space that is borderless, but to think borderless here on Earth so that we have benefit for everybody. I mean, I think that's really the juncture where we're at. And I think the United States has the great capacity for good governance and leadership, more than ever before. Because when we're thinking about the digital age and what that means, and like I was talking about data and privacy, you have forces within Earth that are moving to more like surveillance state, and that's a scary thought. So in order for us to protect the values and the freedoms that we hold so dear here in the United States, and make sure that those values with like-minded allies are upheld across the globe, I think it's more important than ever that the United States take a leadership position in this. So I'm very encouraged by all of the movements that we're seeing from within government today, but also these public-private partnerships that can accelerate the process, because government can't always do it alone. So I think that this is the future that I'm seeing that is tremendously exciting.
Fantastic. So I really want to get Pinar to share her hairy, audacious goal. Shift this conversation just a little bit, because I know what it's like to be an entrepreneur and be like all in for this mission, vision. And we talked about this the other day, and I said, Pinar, maybe you don't need to wait. Maybe like what you have that you really want to do is realizable now. So tell us a little bit about your dream.
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk about that invention, that vision, and that explorer profile. So let's start from scratch. If we never ever needed to write anything down, could we invent pens? We probably wouldn't. So the trigger of all of these inventions and the explorations is about curiosity and need. How? I mean, we are itching for finding an answer if we've come across with a problem. But to find a solution, we have to come across with that problem. For the space, as a person that's just behind the television or the internet, if I'm reading as an audience, it's like, okay, there are certain people who are trying to do something to go to space, to live on the space, and I'm just watching, and one day it will happen. But no, your one certain little tiny bit of information piece can be a small step for you, but can be a giant step for humanity. To trigger that curiosity, we can generate each and every problem part of space living concept. In the platforms that I'm developing, for example, in virtual reality or extended realities, everybody in this conversation or from the audience, you can join me creating a space where we can generate those problems. We have got lots of problems about generating a living in space. Doesn't matter in the nothingness or on a planet or at another galaxy, it doesn't matter. But to generate a living, a human living, we have got certain problems. It's about the survival, the foods and the water that we need, the supplies, how we will carry, with which device we will carry under space conditions, how it will react, and how is the journey itself. It's not like driving a car. It's a super complex journey. Your life is in your hands for that very single tiny little of the second. It's about pushing a button or not. It's about twisting something or not. But it's millions of combinations that you can do and just one single thing can work at that moment, and your life can just go through the endless to the galaxy. So we have got lots of steps, lots of problems to be solved, which can be solved not by only the academician, not by only the scientists, not by only the tech developers or investors, but by any person on Earth. Everybody on this earth has got a profession, has got a specialty, has got a specific information because of their experiences in certain field. That can be about electronics, that can be about food, that can be the old uncle living at the next apartment and feeding their plants. His one of knowledge can solve many problems in space technology. So I'm all in for generating the curiosity in the community for space. So I'm looking forward to your support and contributions in that terms. So yeah, this is basically what I can do to humanity to generate the living, no matter where we are.
Thank you, Pinar. That's awesome, and I love hearing it come. I love hearing this conversation originate from your part of the world. I mean, this is a huge inspiration for girls in space, women in tech, and so on and so forth. And before we all leave each other today and get ready for June, which we're already going to come back together for, I want you to share some resources with us, organizations where young women and girls can engage in conversations that you've sparked today. Like, where can they go? Give us like your, top organizations that you would say, check out so-and-so. And it doesn't matter the age, just, what are some organizations that you have found very helpful in your journey?
Well, for my side,
Yep.
I really love being a part of Women Tech Network and Space Foundation Network, and I'm looking forward to be a part at any position. It doesn't matter of United Nations Space program for contributing. Apart from this, anyone who is interested in triggering the curiosity to explore new borders, so new lands, I would like everyone to reach out to me through LinkedIn, through Twitter. They can find me on any place, through my company's website. So it's like theatlas.space. So the Atlas will transform into a giant, living digital space in the future. So please join me and please contact me for this.
Fantastic. Kelly, organizations that you found very supportive?
So Pinar mentioned too, I was going to joke that it was the ecosystem of Shelley Brunswick. So I know Shelley will mention things. I think for me, I've been being in DC and sort of being in this defense and aerospace industry, just privy to the conversations. But I would say that what I guess new resources that I have found really interesting. I'm a huge fan of Clubhouse. I don't know if you guys are on that, but it has really decentralized conversations around areas. And there's a really budding space network within there with a whole bunch of different topic areas that I get alerts on. And it's interesting because I'll jump into conversations and it's with people all over the world from all different backgrounds. And it's really made me think in a lot of different ways. So I've enjoyed that as a new resource beyond the ones that were already mentioned.
Fantastic. Awesome. Great contribution. And I'm on Clubhouse as well. And I went in there to like find speakers and met some astronauts and things like that. So it's me just learning, getting the landscape, because this is truly an ecosystem. It's not a community, it's an ecosystem, and it's global.
A very diverse group of speakers. I mean, I'm always very fascinated with who's chatting with who and how they're all connected and the things they have to say.
Now we just need to bring them virtual onto Amplifying Her Voice, because then we can see them and hear them and record them when they're able to record. I feel bad for Kyla. She's still trying to get in. Heather, you next. Resources for women and girls that might want to get into this ecosystem of ours.
Yeah, there's a great group out of based in DC, but nationally called NatSec Girl Squad. which is a fun crew, just very focused on national security. I kind of build my own, stealthy down low networks of awesome women. I think, who I trust and go to and talk to, constantly. So I think it's really important just to, use different resources to really kind of find your posse and find, who are those folks that like the Shelley Brunswick network of Space America. Just to find out, those people that are going to just be constantly looking at add value, that sort of thing. I'm super old school. I still use LinkedIn for pretty much everything that I do. I find amazing people there. It's a great way to stay connected. I think spending some time and really building out your LinkedIn profile in a thoughtful way, I think is a really good use of time and resources. And then just, groups like All Rise, groups that are coming together, around these different areas. But yeah, there's value in just kind of going along through life and kind of collecting those people. And I think maintaining those sorts of relationships as you grow and get older, I think is really important.
Fantastic. Radhika and then Shelley.
Put in the chat, the Girls Who Code. I think that's a marvelous organization. They're doing some amazing things. I also I'm on the board of Upward, which is a global network of executive women. It was founded by Lisa Lambert, formerly of Intel Capital and now at National Grid Partners. She's phenomenal. And I think that's we need support, I think, at all levels, because it's not just at the, we want to shape the next generation of women, girls, women, etc., right? All of the above. And I think it's about really writing new stories. I mean, yesterday, the panel discussion we had come up with, well, why aren't we hearing more about women? We keep hearing about hidden figures in all walks of life all the time. There are people that have studied in particular disciplines and say, I didn't know that there was a woman that created that. That's because, history is his story and not her story. A lot of great achievements by women have not been highlighted enough, have not been told enough. And so we have an opportunity with women's networks to highlight and spotlight great women who've done great things throughout the course of history, and then to inspire women who look like us to do bigger things tomorrow. So, I want to bring that kind of diversity and inspiration to all girls, all women. It's one of the reasons I wrote the book with my co-author, is to really inspire the next generation of women to get involved in deep tech, to get involved in all manner of high tech and advanced technologies, because we can absolutely find solutions in a different way from our male counterparts. And I think that I invite all women to get engaged in this process. So whether you're on the venture side looking at how do you enable the next generation of female entrepreneurs to solve big challenges, or whether you're on the entrepreneurial side saying, I have a vision and I'd like to fly with this bold vision, and how can I do that and get the right support? What I'm encouraged by is that there are so many women wanting to help and being involved in all aspects of this process. But we need to keep doing, because obviously the statistics and the results have not been what we want to have, as a reality. We're still talking about women. We're talking about, and I want to get past that conversation. I just want to do, and I want to be a part of a world where we don't have to talk about this in this way. And I think that, one of the foibles that I've seen is there are a lot of networks today that are just, the familiar old boy networks, right? And so we can create, I think, women networks, really powerful women networks where we're all empowering each other and lifting each other up. And I'd like to be a part of that.
Okay, you're already a part of it. You're right here, right now. So it's great. And this is just getting bigger and bigger every month. So State of Women Institute, we're 501c3, and our mission is to amplify women's voices, has been from day one. We did it through film, we did it through social, now we're doing it through getting everyone together, and soon on our podcast apps, like amplifying voices in Arabic, French, Russian, English, Chinese, whatever you name it, and soon to be refugee voices. Several of our partners, and your logo's on here, I believe, Shelley, as part of the Amplifying Her Voice series, is Space Hipsters, started by a woman. Heard of this group, Space Hipsters? There's Women Talk Space, another Facebook group, Women Talk Space, and it's a place where you can have easy conversation Space for a Better World. This is Christina Corpse. She's got a whole group of women that are now like either, I think they just did a simulated flight this past weekend for Mother's Day weekend. So just like really out there. So I'm just doing my homework to see, what's out there. I have a 10-year-old daughter, and she goes for rocket launches to go check it out, and just getting it more, sensitized. And this next panel that's going to come on, thank you, Shelley Brunswick, Foundation Extraordinaire, the Shelley Network. It's a space for girls, and it's dream for a better world. And so we're really getting this conversation going for the next generation. Like, where do I go? How do I learn? What do I do? There are all these questions. And even for women, like, where do we go? How do we learn? So we're just going to start demystifying that one by one. And I encourage you all to think. And the list is actually great. NASA Apps Challenge. And then Girl Scouts, of course. Like, one of my girlfriend's daughter, we had crypto for kids in one of our sessions through the State of Women Institute. And the girls like built computers and taught it to mine cryptocurrency after lunch. Like, within 4 hours, they built their little computers and whatever. And some of the girls actually joined Girl Scouts. And I know that they're actually doing stuff in the space arena and whatnot. But there needs to be more. And we can start right here by having the conversation. Shelley, I'm going to let you close us out. You've got 2 minutes. Tell us what I put.
Well, thank you. And as I kind of just said in the chat, there's lots of opportunities. One of the challenges is helping people find those opportunities. And so that's why your program and Amplify Her Voice is so important, because it helps to highlight those opportunities. Many of us are familiar with the last mile of delivery. When you think about delivering packages, who's going to do that last mile of delivery when we order something? But it's the same in the space ecosystem. It's the same when we're looking at that workforce development. Many times we can talk up here, but we really got to talk about what is that last mile of delivery to get kids, and all kids, inner city, rural, regions of the world, male, female, as well as adults who want to come in, reskill and upskill into the space ecosystem. How do we get them into opportunities? And we just listed about 50 just off the top of our heads, whether it's NASA, Women in Aerospace, Space Generation Advisory Council, Girl Scouts, join your local chamber of commerce. There are many, many opportunities where you can start. And if you join an organization and you can't have the impact or your voice the way you want, that will help you find the next organization where you can have an impact. So get out there and try as well. Reach out. Everyone on this panel just said we'd be happy to help you make those connections on LinkedIn. We want to help you make that last mile of delivery. And with that, I'm going to jump off so I can start my next session, which is exactly that. Dream big. It's about women around the world who are creating programs to do that last mile of delivery to get kids around the world into the global space ecosystem and what their programs are doing. So I do want to thank everyone for joining. Also, thank you, Anu, for inviting me to be an advisor for the State of Women Institute. I'm honored to be joining you. And all of you are FOSS, friends of Shelley, so I know I'll be seeing you at some other panel events that I've already talked to you about. So thank you.
T-shirts next time. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Shelley. Thank you all. Great conversation.
Thank you.